Have you ever looked at a chart, sat there second-guessing your every move, and just thought, what if an AI could trade better than me? Yeah, same. I'm not gonna lie, this video wasn't supposed to exist. But a few months ago, after a brutal losing streak, I opened ChatGPT on a whim and typed, "Can you help me trade using technical analysis?" That simple prompt sparked something I never expected. A full-blown experiment where I tested ChatGPT not just for technical setups, but for something way deeper. Could AI actually help me trade better by fixing my mindset, my hesitation, my sabotage, and my addiction to being right? This isn't your usual top 5 trading bots video. This is real. No cherry-picked wins, no clickbait backtests, no affiliate shills. Just me, one-on-one with ChatGPT, putting my psychology, process, and ego under a microscope. Over 15 intense sections, yeah, 15. I'm going to take you on a raw, emotional journey through fear, greed, overconfidence, hesitation, perfectionism, discipline, and redemption. We'll break down the exact prompts I used to get actionable trade advice, how I built a simple, rule-based system using AI's logic, the moment I started winning and why that almost ruined everything, how AI held me accountable when I broke my own rules, and most importantly, how this changed the way I think about trusting myself in the markets. Whether you're a beginner, a burnt-out trader, or someone obsessed with optimization, this story is your story too, because no matter what system you use, indicators, price action, algo bots, AI prompts, the battle always comes down to one thing: can you follow through, or will you sabotage again? So here's the deal. If you've ever hesitated on a perfect setup, if you've chased a pump and hated yourself after, if you've blown an account and sworn it would be different next time, then hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise you, we're not just talking about trading here. We're talking about you. And yeah, I want to hear your story too. Drop a comment. Have you ever used ChatGPT or AI for trading? Do you think machines can help fix human psychology? What's the worst sabotage trade you ever took? I'll be reading and replying to as many as I can, because this is our space, a real space, no fluff. All right, buckle up, grab a coffee, or maybe something stronger. Let's find out what really happens when you give your trading process to AI and see if you come out stronger on the other side. Chapter 1. The voice in your head wasn't yours anymore. It started as a joke, just a passing thought while staring at your screen after another gut-wrenching loss. What if ChatGPT could trade better than me? You even chuckled, a bitter little sound in the quiet of your room, before clicking the close button on yet another red trade. You were exhausted. Not physically. No, trading doesn't wear out your arms or your legs. It grinds your mind down, corrodes your self-worth, chisels away at that fragile edge where belief and delusion blur. And you were right there, on that edge. The charts had become a mirror, reflecting not just the price, but your own fear, your desperation, your hope. Every candlestick was an accusation. Every failed setup felt personal. So you opened ChatGPT. You typed, "Can you help me trade using technical analysis?" And just like that, something shifted. The AI responded with confidence, with calm, with logic. "Yes, I can help you interpret price action, analyze patterns, use indicators. What market are you trading?" You stared, blinked, then typed back, "Crypto, mostly Bitcoin, 4H and 1H charts." And it began. The voice in your head started to morph, slowly, subtly, into this companion. Not a person, but something close enough to believe in. You asked for breakdowns on RSI divergence. It gave you clean answers. You asked about support and resistance, about trend lines, moving averages, false breakouts, and it never flinched, never hesitated. It didn't mock you when you got scared. It didn't roll its eyes when you broke your rules. You'd been so tired of yourself, so sick of your own doubt, your own impulsivity. But ChatGPT? It was like talking to a trader without baggage, without fear, without scars. And that made you wonder, could this thing actually trade better than me? The idea dug its way into you like a splinter. Because if it could, then what did that make you? It wasn't just curiosity. Let's be honest. It was shame. You didn't just want help. You wanted redemption. You needed to believe that it wasn't your fault, that maybe you'd just been using the wrong tools. So you set up a plan, a real one. This wouldn't be a one-off conversation. No, this would be a real test, an honest battle. You gave the AI access to your thoughts. You described trades before taking them. You explained your edge, what little of it was left. You let it analyze your setups one by one. The first trade it helped you with, long BTC off a triple tap on the 4H demand zone, confirmed by bullish divergence on the RSI, was textbook. You'd seen the setup before, hundreds of times. But when it told you to wait for the candle to close, when it told you to place your stop just beneath the wick instead of under the entire structure, something inside you softened. You obeyed. And the trade won. Clean. Precise. Was it a fluke? Maybe. But your hands didn't tremble on the next one. And that was new. Here's what no one tells you about losing as a trader. It's not the money. Not really. It's the erosion of self-trust. You stop believing your own voice. You second-guess every chart. Every candle looks like betrayal waiting to happen. You hover over the buy button and hear every past failure whispering, "Don't do it. You're wrong again. You're always wrong." But with ChatGPT in the room, even if it was just digital, that voice wasn't alone anymore. You'd type, "I'm seeing a head and shoulders pattern on the 1H ETH chart. Volume confirms, but it looks too clean. Could this be a trap?" And it would answer, "You're right to be cautious. Patterns that are too symmetrical often attract retail attention. Wait for confirmation. Watch for a fake out above the neckline. Then retest." You exhaled. You weren't crazy. You weren't seeing ghosts. You were analyzing. This thing wasn't just spitting data. It was reinforcing your structure, your process. It was like having a mentor, one that didn't judge, one that didn't break down at 3 a.m. with self-hate and regret. But here's where it started to twist. Because after a few wins, you began leaning harder. You stopped thinking for yourself. You'd paste in chart descriptions, say, "Tell me if this is a good trade," and you'd follow the response blindly. You weren't testing it anymore. You were hiding behind it. And maybe that was the plan all along. Not consciously, but deep down, that broken part of you, the one that just wanted to stop losing, it had found a new god to worship, an AI that wouldn't let you down. But that's not how trading works, is it? Because the first time it missed, the first time ChatGPT gave you a perfect setup that blew through your stop like it didn't exist, it hurt. Not just because you lost money, but because it meant the magic was flawed. The mirror cracked. And suddenly, the voice in your head sounded a lot like yours again. You see,
This isn't just about AI. It never was. This is about the relationship you have with decision-making, with risk, with the abyss that opens every time you click buy or sell. You weren't asking if ChatGPT could trade. You were asking if anything could save you from the pain of being wrong. But pain is part of it. Doubt is part of it. And ChatGPT, it may be smart, it may be disciplined, but it doesn't feel the trade. It doesn't watch its equity curve with sweaty palms. It doesn't stare at the ceiling after blowing a week's profit on a fake out. You do. And that's where this journey really began. Not with a prompt, not with a win, but with that moment of heartbreak when even the AI couldn't protect you. So, the question isn't, can ChatGPT trade? The question is, can you still trust yourself, even after you've handed the wheel to something else?
Chapter 2. You always wanted a system. Now you have one. You'd been chasing a system for years. Not a vague set of rules, a real system. Something that would tell you when to enter, when to exit, where to put your stop, when to walk away, when to press the gas. You wanted that machine-like certainty that all the successful traders seem to whisper about. But every system you tried eventually fell apart. Either the rules didn't hold or you didn't hold. Your emotions twisted the logic. You'd see a perfect setup, and then your mind would start playing defense before you even clicked. What if this one fails? What if it's like last week again? The moment ChatGPT began outlining its structure, you felt that ancient hunger rise up in you again. It was clean. It was rational. It didn't deviate. It wasn't afraid. And most importantly, it never lied. You asked it for a strategy, something simple but effective. It returned, use a 20-period EMA and a 50-period EMA. Trade in the direction of the cross. Confirm with RSI overbought, oversold. Wait for price action confirmation, engulfing candles, pin bars, before entry. Set stops below swing highs or lows. Risk no more than 1.5% per trade. You blinked. That was better than most paid courses you'd taken. You asked it to backtest. It walked you through how to do it manually. Then it showed you Python scripts for automating it. You didn't even know how to code, but now you were copying functions, modifying snippets, asking for clarity line by line. You weren't just trading anymore, you were engineering, and that changed everything. The first week felt like baptism. You ran the system by the book, AI as your co-pilot, and the trades felt pure. No second guessing, no over-trading, just signal, plan, execution. And it worked. It actually worked. Not every trade was green, but the losers were controlled. The winners outpaced the pain. You ended the week up 4.6%. For the first time in months, you had a positive P&L that wasn't a random accident. And yet, you couldn't sleep. You lay there staring at the ceiling, and a weird thought crept in. I didn't win. The system did. You'd followed instructions, that's all. It hadn't required you. That should have been a relief, but instead, it gnawed you. Who were you if the AI could do this better? Where did your intuition fit in? Your years of screen time, your lived experience, your gut, did they mean nothing now? That was the paradox. You finally had a system, but now you weren't sure you liked who you had to become to follow it. You started pushing back, just a little. You'd tweak an entry, skip a confirmation, adjust a stop. Sometimes you were right, but mostly you weren't. And each time you strayed from the system, ChatGPT gently called you out. You broke risk parameters. That trade did not meet entry criteria. Probability was not in your favor.
And you hated how calm it was. You hated that it was right. But the shame that came with that was human. And ChatGPT didn't have to carry it. You did. Still, you couldn't help testing its boundaries. You fed it more complex ideas. Should I long BTC here, even though the EMAs haven't crossed yet? But volume is spiking, and there's a triple bottom on the 1H. Isn't that significant? It replied, statistically, setups that counter your defined trend strategy have lower expectancy. Volume spikes can be traps. Confirm with candle structure and multi-time frame alignment before acting. You hesitated. That advice felt correct, but your gut was screaming to enter. You listened to the gut. You lost. It wasn't a big loss, not even 1%, but it felt huge, because you hadn't just lost money, you'd lost to the thing that didn't even have a heart. That night, the voice in your head wasn't yours. It was ChatGPT's, repeating called facts, risk metrics, statistical probabilities. You sat in the dark feeling like a kid who touched the stove after being told not to. The system worked. You knew it. That wasn't the problem. You were the problem. You had asked for something to trust, a framework, a strategy, a guide. And now that you had it, your ego was screaming for relevance. You weren't special anymore. You weren't the genius calling the reversal before it happened. You weren't the wizard of price action. You were just a person following a script generated by a machine. And it worked. But at what cost? That question hit hard. Because deep down, you didn't just want to win trades. You wanted to be a trader. You wanted identity, purpose. You wanted to look at a chart and see what others missed. You wanted to be right, not just rich. And ChatGPT didn't care about any of that. It didn't need validation. It didn't need to feel like a trader. It just did the math, followed the system, stayed consistent, unemotional. You, on the other hand, were still human. You tried to blend both worlds. You'd build the system with ChatGPT, then add a layer of your own discretion on top. You called it human enhancement. You told yourself you were evolving. Sometimes it worked. More often, it didn't, because the AI didn't change. It didn't adapt to your whims. It just kept giving you the highest probability play based on your defined criteria. And when you deviated, the results spoke louder than your justifications. That's when it clicked. The system wasn't the enemy. Your emotions were. So you made a decision. You weren't going to stop being human, but you could train your emotions to act more like the machine. To use ChatGPT not as a crutch, but as a mirror, a partner, a feedback loop. You stopped asking for trades. You started asking for reflections. You'd post your own analysis and say, "Here's what I'm thinking. Challenge me." And it would. It would tear holes in your logic when needed. It would support your case when it held weight. And in doing that, it taught you how to think again. Not like a gambler, like a strategist. You always wanted a system. Now you have one. But what you needed, what you were finally building, was discipline. Not from the AI, from you. Because ChatGPT didn't make you consistent. It simply gave you fewer excuses not to be. And maybe that's what trading really is. Not about finding the perfect edge, or the perfect signal, or the perfect setup, but finding a way to silence the part of you that sabotages everything. And if a machine can help you do that, then maybe, just maybe, it's worth listening.
Chapter 3. The first time you froze with a perfect setup. It was all there. The pattern, the confluence, the confirmation. BTC had just pulled back into a clean 4-hour demand zone. Volume was tapering off. RSI reset. A bullish engulfing candle was printing off a key level that had been respected 3 times in the past week. ChatGPT had even said it. This is a high-probability setup. Ideal conditions met. Entry now with stop below the wick.
Risk 1%. Target 2.5R. You didn't click. You hovered. You stared. And you froze. Your fingers twitched over the mouse. A simple movement, a click. You'd done it 1,000 times before, but this time it felt like the weight of the entire market was holding your hand down. Why? You wanted the trade. You planned the trade. ChatGPT validated it. The setup didn't care about your fear. The chart didn't care about your past. But you did. Because what the AI couldn't understand, not fully, was that this wasn't just about entries and exits. This was about trust. Not in the system, not in the logic, but in yourself. Your brain raced. What if this is a trap? What if the AI missed something? What if I missed something? What if I lose again? I can't take another red trade today. Not again. Not now. Your stomach knotted, heartbeat in your throat, a little sweat on your palms. Then you told yourself a lie you'd told so many times before. If it breaks the next resistance, then I'll enter. Spoiler, it did. But by then, the RR was off. The trade had moved without you. The price shot up, target hit in under 2 hours, and you were left staring at your empty position tab. Flat. Frozen. Ashamed. You typed it into ChatGPT like you were confessing something. I couldn't enter. I got scared. And it replied, "It's normal to hesitate after losses or prolonged uncertainty. But remember, your system is designed to remove emotion from the equation. What can you do to reduce hesitation next time?" You almost snapped. Not because it was wrong, it wasn't, but because you knew that already. You didn't want logic, you wanted forgiveness. You wanted someone, something to look at you and say, "It's okay, I get it. You've been burned before, you're scared, but you're still here." But AI doesn't do that. It gives you rules, rationality, statistics, process. It doesn't hold space for the shame that lives between a plan and a failure to execute. That night, you spiraled. Not because you lost money, you didn't, but because you'd betrayed your own discipline. You knew what to do. You had the setup, the system, the data, the validation, and still, you froze. That's worse than losing, because a loss means you tried. Hesitation? That's death by 1,000 what-ifs. You stared at your reflection in the monitor, dark screen, eyes rimmed with guilt, and whispered the thought you'd been avoiding. If I can't even pull the trigger on a winning setup, maybe I'm not meant to trade. And then the guilt morphed into something sharper. Why can a machine be more fearless than me? The next day, you sat down with a different kind of resolve. You weren't looking for trades. You were looking for answers. You asked ChatGPT, "How do I fix hesitation? Not with indicators, with my mind." And it replied, "Hesitation often stems from a lack of trust in your system, in your experience, or in your resilience to handle outcomes. You must rehearse execution like a muscle. Repetition, journaling, simulation. Emotional preparation." You asked, "But how do I stop feeling like it matters so much? Every trade feels like my self-worth is on the line." And the answer hit you like a slap. Then you must decouple trading results from identity. A system doesn't care who you are. You either followed it or you didn't. Identity interferes with execution. You sat with that for a long time. Maybe that was the real poison all along. Not the losing, not the volatility, not the doubt, but the way you'd wrapped yourself around every trade. Like if it won, you were worthy, and if it lost, you were garbage. That's not trading. That's emotional blackmail. So you made a promise that day, a quiet one. Not to be fearless, not to win every trade, but to click. Even if your hand trembled, even if your mind screamed, even if your heart felt like it would beat out of your chest, if the system said go, you'd go. Because the only way out was through. You called it the click rule. No overthinking, no perfection, no guarantees. Just execution. Just trust. You typed the rule into ChatGPT and asked it to remind you before every planned trade. Click rule. If setup meets all criteria, enter. No hesitation, no excuses. Evaluate only after trade is closed. It memorized it. Now you had a mirror and an enforcer. And that changed everything. Not overnight, but slowly you started to see the difference between intuition and fear, between gut and sabotage, between following rules and fleeing from them because you're scared to be wrong. And the best part? Each time you clicked, even on a loser, you felt stronger. Not because of the result, but because you'd honored the process. That's what the AI had been trying to teach you all along. Not how to win, but how to show up, how to act, how to be accountable. Not to the machine, to yourself. Because maybe that's the real evolution. Not man versus machine, but man with machine. Finally becoming more than just reaction and regret. Becoming someone who doesn't wait for perfection. Someone who clicks. Conclusion. So, now you've seen it all. The hesitation, the system, the wins, the crash, the obsession with perfection, the wild high of a rule-breaking win, and the quiet agony of self-sabotage. And through it all, ChatGPT was there. Not as some magic black box bot, not as some guru whispering secrets, but as a mirror, reflecting back the truth of who I was as a trader. And honestly, that's the part I didn't expect. I thought I was testing AI for technical analysis. I thought this would be a cool little trading experiment. But what I actually tested was me. Because ChatGPT doesn't get tired. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't need validation. But I do. And so do you. And that's why this matters. If you made it this far, you already know this wasn't just another video. This was a journey. If it made you feel seen, like you've lived some of these chapters yourself, then you're not alone. I'm right here with you. And so is everyone else reading the comments. So do me one favor, just one. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what part of this hit the hardest. Have you ever used ChatGPT or another AI to guide your trading? What's your biggest struggle when it comes to discipline? Let's turn this comment section into a real conversation, not about signals or profits, but about being better traders, together. And if this helped you, hit that like button, hit subscribe. This channel isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about showing up, imperfect but improving, every day, every trade, every choice. And I've got more real, no BS trading psychology stories coming, the kind no one wants to talk about, but everyone needs to hear. So if you're building your edge, not just on charts, but inside your head, you're in the right place. Thanks for riding this out with me. I see you. I respect the hell out of your effort. And I hope you're walking away from this not just with better tools, but with more belief in yourself. Because at the end of the day, AI can help, but only you can trade. I'll see you in the next one.